Get over to the submission of the year, brother. So we got a few less choices across the board. We've got 3 UFC fights, and then we have 1 PFL appearance right here, man. You got Stevie Ray, who hit the modified twister on Anthony Showtime Pettis. Yuri Prochazka snatching the belt away from Glover Teixeira with the rear naked choke. Amanda Lemos getting submitted by Jessica Andrade with a fantastic standing arm triangle. And then, of course, man, Islam Makhachev, who just does something to the jiu-jitsu guy that nobody else can do, man. You just arm triangled him, you mauled him. It was nasty. But let's talk about the first one, brother. Let's talk about Stevie Ray versus Anthony Pettis, man. What made this one fantastic is simply the skill level, the difficulty level of the submission in and of itself, man. I mean, you're hitting a modified twister on a dude like Anthony Pettis, who not only has fantastic grappling in and of itself, man, but this dude is a former champion. This dude is a legend. And a lot of the times, man, it's just the pain, it's the ribs crunching, it's the neck being cranked, right? So when you can just hit something like that on somebody of his caliber, I just think that, without being said, that has to be a submission of the year. What did you think about that one? Do you think it deserves to be on this list, first and foremost?
I mean, just on the performance alone, man, like you said, to be able to hit a technique like that on a person who has seen it all and done it all and is very well versed, man, just speaks levels to the game of Stevie Ray. And it's hard to not include this one into it, even though, like you said, Derek, it's PFL, so a lot of this gets overlooked for a lot of people, but you can't overlook that twister, man. It is a beautiful technique and hard to hit, man, hard to even see. You know, you rarely see it. That's how impressive it is, and especially against a caliber like Pettis.
That's right. Now this next one right here, man, I think that this could be the winner of multiple categories. That's what's crazy about this one. When we're talking about Yuri Prochazka getting the rear naked choke over Glover Teixeira in the 5th round of a championship bout that was back and forth the entire time, to submit the guy that was clearly headed to a victory if he was able to just keep the pressure up that round. Phenomenal. But my thing about this one is that it's tough to call this a submission of the year, simply because the submission in and of itself wasn't fantastic. Like, it was a cool submission, right? You got it, you locked up the choke, but it was also, we're both exhausted, we got nothing left in the tank. There we go, right? So the context of the win, I think that this deserves to be in another category that we'll talk about in a second. But you tell me, man, do you think context in that story of how it was going should really count when you're talking about a submission of the year?
Not necessarily submission of the year, maybe a comeback of the year, maybe something of another sort. But I agree, as much, I think it is good to be included, because a lot of people, I saw this on a lot of people's lists too, man, because of how out of nowhere, and especially to do that on Glover, man, another person who is so well experienced and seen everything and done it all. I think I can see why it's included, but like you said, not the most technical of submit, especially when we're going from a modified twister to just an RNC, man, a rear naked choke. It's apples to oranges, if you will.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Still a fantastic choke, man. Still came out of nowhere. Still, when you watch it, you get goosebumps and you're like, God damn, how did that even happen, right? But okay, let's move on to the next one. These two, I mean, it's clear cut why these are here, right? Islam Makhachev over Charles Oliveira. First off, the reason why, AJ, I'm going to be honest with you, this isn't at the top of my list, even though it's a fantastic submission right here, is because the submission was a byproduct of hurting your opponent and not being scared to jump in there and finish the job, right? Now, you have to give it points because it's Charles Oliveira and he's submitting everybody, and if you even enter his guard, you're probably going to get submitted, right? But Islam Makhachev is a little bit of a different story. Fantastic arm triangle choke, one of my favorite to perform myself. But at the end of the day, is it a fantastic submission, or was it just a fantastic finish overall?
I actually think it was, I could see what you're saying about the fantastic submission versus a finish. I think it is a little bit better of a finish right here because of what you're saying, man. The storyline of the people that are scared to jump into Charlie Olive's guard are vast. You know, there's very few and far between that are willing to jump in there, and one of them is Makhachev. And to me, it was the beating somebody at their own game. I'm going to take your ego, I'm going to take your pride, I'm going to take your soul, and I'm going to beat you at your own game. That to me right there is a storyline. And because you hit a submission on a Charles Oliveira, who is that well versed, it's right there, man. It's neck and neck. I can see it, especially with this next one we're gonna talk about.
Absolutely. Fantastic submit. I mean, listen, man, we're talking about like stakes on the line and the pressure of like you better do something to this dude and you finish him, and you said you were gonna finish him. Like, oh my God, it's fantastic. And then lastly, man, you got Jessica Andrade, who hits the standing arm triangle choke against Amanda Lemos, man. And this resonates to me on a couple of different levels. The first level is, first off, Amanda Lemos is a sniper, right? And she caught Andrade early. She had her hurt, she had her rocked, right? But Andrade does what Andrade does, man. She bullies you up, she walks forward, she gets you into these little wrestling scenarios, scrambles and all that fun stuff. And then she just dips underneath, locks up a standing arm triangle. And folks, I want you to understand just how difficult that is. Like, in terms of just like skill points for just difficulty, like that is one of the most difficult things you can do, because there's so many ways for your opponent to be able to circumnavigate that and get to a safe position. Given that Amanda Lemos, who is a fantastic grappler herself, got caught in that by the shorter fighter, Jessica Andrade, I can't even put into words how impressive this was, man. So you got past the power striker, you submitted her even though you're supposed to knock her out. It was fantastic across the board. And for a women's submission, man, like, beautiful. What do you think?
A submission, another submission we very rarely see, man, because it's so hard to pull off. And against a boogie woman, if you will, of that division that was coming up and knocking everybody out, coming to take the older fighter's spot in Jessica Andrade. And Jessica Andrade just absolutely brought it to her, man. It's hard, like I said, it's hard to pick, man. These ones are so close in the submission of the year, right, both for storyline as well as technique going into this one, man.
That's right. But let's pick a winner, brother. Let's get it. All right, man. I gotta go with Jessica Andrade, man. I think it's pretty clear cut. I think I'm gonna have to start switching these, so the last one we talk about isn't the one that I pick, right? But ultimately, how can you go wrong with Jessica Andrade? Skill points, rare points, just like shorter fighter getting it on the taller fighter, beating the boogie woman. I mean, all across the board. It's hard for me to not pick Jessica Andrade right here. I think this is overlooked because the stakes were not nearly as high as Makhachev versus Oliveira, or even Stevie Ray versus Pettis, or even all these other championship fights. You know what I mean? Teixeira and all that shit. Ultimately, man, just because the stakes weren't high in terms of a championship on the line or anything like this, man, submission for submission just across the board, up there for me. I love it. But it's not about me, AJ, now. It's about you, brother. So let's see who you got for your winner submission of the year, brother.
Man, mine is Islam Makhachev, man. The arm triangle over Charles Oliveira, for me, this one was super hard to pick, man. Both very close. My second runner-up, or the runner-up, excuse me, was the Jessica Andrade, because of how difficult it was. But again, the storyline behind it, the proclamation years and years ago that Abdul Manap set out before Khabib was even champion, man. He said it: when Khabib leaves, Islam will be the guy. And for Islam to come in and do that to Charlie Olives in his own style, after hurting him, after dropping him on the feet, man, all the things that the Russian smash style people aren't normally used to seeing, but Islam came in and proved he covers all grounds right there, man. To me, that is just the storyline again, fulfilling all the necessary check boxes. But I will say that Andrade, that states the technique is so impressive. This one is a very hard one to choose. But again, for me, Islam Makhachev with the background, it's hard too, man, because I picked against him. I picked against him for quite a while, and it's good to see the Sambo is still kicking back, man. What do you think, Derek?
I thought that this was a pretty fantastic choice, man. Like I said, for me personally, think it's a better finish than it is a submission, but just doing what you did to Charles Oliveira, making it look easy, steamrolling him, submitting the jiu-jitsu guy that submits everybody. You should just win submission of the year simply for that fact alone. You know what I mean? But we all have different criteria at the end of the day. Fantastic pick. I do think that the Stevie Ray over Anthony Pettis does get overlooked because it's a PFL fight. But Modified Twister, man, I mean, that's always going to be up there for me.